In some respects, it could probably be hard to understand why Jesus was upset and got angry and spilled all of the money changers' tables and drove all the animals out, because, you see, the old temple was constructed in such a way that it had several courts. And where all of this takes place is in the outer court, called the court of the Gentiles. And the money changers had a right to be there, because it was the place where the Gentiles came who believed and wanted to offer sacrifice to God. And so they would come with their foreign currency, which the Jewish people considered to be unclean, and they would exchange their foreign currency for temple currency. And then after the exchange would purchase a dove or a sheep or a goat, and then they would offer that sacrifice to God as worship. However, while the money changers had a right to be there, they also had marketplace mentality. And they were inflating the cost of the exchange. And by inflating the cost of the exchange, they were in effect preventing the Gentiles from being able to worship God in the manner that they desired, because it was costing them too much. And so Jesus made this whip out of cords, and he drove them all out and said, "Take your marketplace mentality out of my Father's house, which is a house of prayer." Jesus was not going to tolerate marketplace mentality in the temple. And you know, when I read the scriptures daily, when I pray with them, it's almost as if sometimes I read the Bible in this hand, and then I'm seeing them unfolded in this hand while I'm reading my newspaper. Because the Word of God continues to be revealed. The truth of God continues to be unfolded, so to speak. And so just as Jesus was not willing to tolerate any kind of a blasphemous behavior in the temple, he's not going to tolerate it in his church. You see, because marketplace mentality is not interested in justice. Marketplace mentality is interested in what it can gain for itself. Marketplace mentality is not interested on what is good and what is right. Marketplace mentality is interested in negotiating, dickering, so to speak. Marketplace mentality sometimes wants to line its pockets. Marketplace mentality, you see, causes people to do what that little girl is doing. Really, I'm not kidding you. You know, you got to use everything in this business, you know. Because people get hurt with marketplace mentality. And when people get hurt, there are tears. And so we're facing the same challenge in the church today as Jesus was facing in the temple back then. Because this challenge that the church is facing, we are being told to negotiate. We're being told to compromise. We're being told to fall into line. We're being told that institutions are not going to get dispensations or a pass. But excuse me, I am not an institution. I am a person with a conscience. And I have a right to live out my life according to my conscience. There's a tremendous amount of rhetoric that's being thrown around. We're being told that our right to worship is not being encroached upon. But the First Amendment to the Constitution doesn't guarantee a right to worship. It guarantees a right to the freedom of religion. It's different. Freedom of worship means you can come to church on Sunday. But out there, you need to fall into place. Freedom of religion means that you have the right to live out your conscience without anybody telling you what you can do and what you can't do. I want to read something to you. And after I read it to you, I'll tell you who wrote it, and then I'll tell you when it was written. The church will become small and will have to start afresh, more or less, from the beginning. She will no longer be able to inhabit many of the edifices she built in prosperity. As the number of her faithful diminishes, she will lose many of her social privileges. As a small society, the church will make much bigger demands on the initiative of her members. It will be hard going for the church, for the process of crystallization and clarification will cost her much valuable energy. She's going to suffer. It will make her poor and cause her to become the church of the meek. The process will be long and wearisome, as was the road from the false progressivism on the eve of the French Revolution. When a bishop might be thought smart if he made fun of dogmas and even insinuated that the existence of God was by no means certain. But when the trial of this sifting is past, a great power will flow from a more spiritualized and simplified church. Men in a totally planned world will find themselves unspeakably lonely. And if they have completely lost sight of God, they will feel the whole horror of their poverty. Then they will discover the little flock of believers as something wholly new. They will discover it as a hope that is meant for them, an answer for which they have always been searching in secret. And so it seems certain to me that the church is facing very hard times. The real crisis has scarcely begun, and we will have to count on terrific upheavals. But I am equally certain about what will remain at the end. Not the church of the political cult, which is already dead, but the church of faith. She may well no longer be the dominant social power to the extent that she was until recently, but she will enjoy a fresh blossoming and be seen as man's home, where he will find life and hope beyond death. You know who wrote that? Pope Benedict XVI, when he was Cardinal Joseph Ratzinger in 1969. You think the Pope is a prophet? I know he is. And I know for certain that the Pope is a prophet because I see him being reviled, I see him being mocked, and I see him being ridiculed, just as like all of the other prophets in the Old Testament were. They did not have very lengthy careers. Jesus was a prophet. His career lasted 3 years. And there were people who wanted to silence him. There are those people who believe that I should not be standing up here talking about what I'm talking about. But I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about faith and morals. I'm talking about a church that is being cleansed. As Jesus cleansed the temple because of the marketplace mentality in the temple, he's cleansing his church of this marketplace mentality too, because there is no negotiating. We either live according to the Spirit of Christ or we live according to the spirit of the world. And what Jesus was saying is, you're not going to bring that kind of thinking in here. It isn't tolerable. And so, my brothers and sisters, you and I have a choice to make. Not only as a church, but as individuals. We have to decide how we're going to live out our faith. Are we going to compromise? Are we going to be willing to negotiate to see the best deal we can get? Or are we going to hold fast to what our faith teaches and what the church teaches about our faith? You know, there was a line in the gospel which talked about, zeal for your house consumes me. That line comes from Psalm 69. And what the psalmist was lamenting prior to this line, he was lamenting his being mocked, scorned, and ridiculed for his willingness to have courage to stand up for what was true and what was right with regard to the things of God. Listen, for your sake I bear insult. Shame covers my face. I have become an outcast to my kin, a stranger to my mother's children, because zeal for your house consumes me. I am scorned by those who scorn you. I have wept and fasted, but this led only to scorn. I clothed myself in sackcloth, and I became a byword for them. They who sit at the gate and gossip about me. Drunkards make me the butt of their songs. And so the choice is ours. But don't wait. Because if you wait, it's going to be too late. You know, there are people who are alive right now who will tell you that the kind of things that are being said and the pressure which is being applied to the church, those same things, those same kind of things, that same pressure was being applied just before the beginning of the Second World War in Germany. They too were saying it was all about the economy, and they were wrong. It isn't about the economy. It's about the dignity of the human person, and we've lost sight of that. Because if we were concerned about the dignity of the human person, the economy would take care of itself, because God would watch over us. But in many respects, we've kicked God out. And so, like Jesus, we're either going to have zeal for his house and not be willing to negotiate with the kind of thinking that's going on out there, because the pressure is being applied and the screws are being turned. And what the Pope is saying is that when that stuff starts to happen, people who have that kind of thinking are going to fall away. They're going to cave in. So I say this to you. If you choose to follow Christ, it's going to be hard. And it's going to hurt. And you're going to suffer. But if you choose to compromise, thinking that you're going to get a better deal. It's going to be hard. And it's going to be painful. And you're going to suffer. Either way, we are in for hard times. And so we must decide now where we stand and who we stand with. I remember at the beginning of the scandal, people looked at me when I walked around with my collar. They made faces at me. They said things to me, called me names, pulled their kids away from me. I never did any of those things. And yet I got painted with the same paintbrush that everybody else got painted with. But I'll tell you the truth, I'm beginning to experience those same kinds of things again. You see, because there are many people out there who believe that you and I are the problem. People of faith are the problem. And so because I wear this, they mock me. They ridicule me. They call me names. And I know that it's going to get tougher. So we have to decide who we're going to follow and what we're going to do. As for me and my house, I will follow the Lord.